10 Greatest Superhero TV Masterpieces of the Past 10 Years. You ever notice how superhero shows used to be the snack before the real meal, the TV version of the good stuff? And then out of nowhere, they became the main course. Like when did television start outclassing billion-dollar movies at their own game? I'll tell you when. It started the moment one witch, one vigilante, and one animated mutant decided to rewrite the rules. And tonight, we're diving into the 10 greatest superhero TV masterpieces of the past decade. The ones that didn't just adapt comics, they redefined them. Because somewhere along the way, superhero TV stopped being comic book escapism. It became cultural mythology. And if you think that sounds dramatic, good. Because this list is chaos, emotion, and genius rolled into 10 stories that broke the mold of what superhero storytelling could ever be. So grab your popcorn, because by the end of this video, you might realize movies aren't the main event anymore. The moment this show dropped, it felt like someone handed the MCU a potion of pure weirdness. And I mean that in the best way possible. Kathryn Hahn's Agatha doesn't wink at the camera, she hypnotizes it, and that's the first secret of its brilliance. Agatha All Along isn't a spin-off, it's a spell. It mixes camp with heartbreak, turning dark comedy into emotional witchcraft. The forbidden knowledge here, it's that humor and pain can coexist in one frame. Every sarcastic laugh hides a cry for power, and every spell hides a piece of loneliness. And honestly, that's why it hits so hard. It's a story about a woman trying to find herself after centuries of being told she's the villain. You ever notice how MCU villains suddenly feel more human when they're given a little spotlight? Yeah, Agatha is Exhibit A. And if this show proved anything, it's that charisma might just be the most powerful kind of magic. Seriously, Kathryn Hahn could make reading a grocery list feel like an ancient ritual. When that first theme song hit, admit it, you scream. We all did. X-Men 97 didn't just bring nostalgia, it brought closure. And that's something superhero fans rarely get. But here's the twist, it didn't play safe. It killed fan favorites, rewrote continuity, and ripped Wolverine apart literally. That's guts. That's confidence. That's storytelling evolution. This wasn't just a revival, it was a rebellion. And the secret hidden underneath all that chaos, it dared to age with its audience. The kids who loved the 90s show are now adults. They've seen loss, identity struggles, prejudice, and that's exactly what X-Men 97 mirrors. Grown-up pain wrapped in Saturday morning nostalgia. So when people say cartoons can't be profound, show them X-Men 97. Because that final frame didn't just hit your nostalgia, it hit your soul. Nobody saw this coming. James Gunn took the most ridiculous character in the Suicide Squad, a man in shiny armor with a pet eagle, and turned him into one of DC's most emotionally complex anti-heroes. How? Because Gunn knows the forbidden truth: laughter makes the heartbreak hurt more. Peacemaker is vulgar, violent, and downright insane. But under all that, it's a therapy session disguised as a gunfight. John Cena gave the performance of his life. Every time he smiled, it felt like he was seconds away from breaking down. The show's power lies in that contradiction. It's chaos that makes you care. The explosions distract you from the trauma, until suddenly, you realize you're feeling something real. And that's why Peacemaker stands tall. It's proof that redemption arcs can exist inside the most absurd settings. If the DCU was collapsing around it, Peacemaker stood there saying, "Yeah, I'll survive the reboot, thanks." And it did. Remember the first time you watched Invincible? You thought, okay, cute comic book animation looks wholesome. Then, boom. One of the most shocking scenes in animation history. No spoilers, but if you know, you know. Invincible doesn't ease you into its world. It grabs you by the throat and asks, how much truth can you handle about being a hero? That's its forbidden knowledge. Every punch, every death, every betrayal. It's not just shock value, it's emotional currency, because every battle has consequences. Mark Grayson's struggle isn't about power, it's about identity, morality, and the legacy of lies we inherit. Steven Yeun's voice acting alone deserves an Emmy. You can hear the innocence leaving his voice as the show progresses, and that's why Invincible matters. It's the first animated superhero show that feels heavier than a war film. It doesn't flinch, doesn't comfort you, doesn't apologize. It just tells the truth. Violently. Before Disney turned superheroes into streaming royalty, Jessica Jones broke ground on Netflix with something no one expected: realism. Not gritty tone. Realism. Emotional realism. Kristen Ritter didn't just play Jessica Jones, she became her. And her pain, her trauma, her anger, didn't feel like acting. It felt like remembering. David Tennant's Kilgrave, easily one of the most haunting villains of all time. Not because he destroyed worlds, but because he destroyed free will. And here's the secret Marvel barely whispered about: Jessica Jones wasn't about superheroes. It was about survivors. It forced audiences to sit with discomfort, to see what control, manipulation, and recovery actually look like. And it did all of that inside the frame of a comic book world. That's why Jessica Jones is timeless. It's not a story you enjoy. It's a story you remember. You've already seen how wild this list is. Witches, mutants, anti-heroes, and survivors. But we're only halfway through, and trust me, the next 5 shows changed superhero TV forever. So before we go deeper, I've got to ask you something important. If you love seeing the secrets behind the shows everyone else is just watching, then this is the part where you hit subscribe to Breakdown Epic. Because here, we don't just talk about superheroes, we unmask them. Alright, now, let's jump into the top 5, where TV truly became the new cinema. Alright, deep breath, because now we're entering the part of superhero television that didn't just entertain us, it rewired us. These next 5 shows didn't follow trends. They created them. They made us question morality, humanity, and even what heroism means when the masks come off. Let's be real. Daredevil didn't just raise the bar, it invented the bar. That hallway fight. Yeah, it wasn't a scene. It was a declaration. TV can do cinema. It screamed, and the world listened. Charlie Cox turned Matt Murdock into one of the most human superheroes ever written. A man torn between morality and vengeance, faith and fury, and the forbidden secret of Daredevil. It wasn't about violence at all. It was about control. Every punch, every prayer, every whispered confession. It's the story of someone trying to contain the devil within. Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin matched him perfectly. Terrifying, gentle, monstrous, and heartbreakingly lonely. It wasn't just hero vs villain. It was 2 broken men fighting for their souls in opposite directions. That's not comic book TV. That's Greek tragedy. And it's the reason Daredevil is still the gold standard for superhero realism. You ever watch something and realize halfway through, oh no, this is about us, that's the boys. At first glance, it's all blood, explosions, and shock value, but underneath the chaos is a story so uncomfortably real it almost hurts to watch. Homelander isn't just a villain. He's a symbol. He's what happens when we worship power without questioning it. And Butcher. He's the anger we pretend we don't feel. The forbidden knowledge here. The Boys isn't parody, it's prophecy. It shows us a world where heroes are products, morality is a brand, and truth gets buried under marketing campaigns. Yet we can't look away. Because deep down, it's the most honest superhero story ever told. We've built this machine that glorifies violence, fame, and control, and the boys just turn the camera back on us. And admit it, every season, you finish an episode and whisper, yeah, they went there. That's power. That's satire that cuts like a blade. Now this one's special. Because the Penguin doesn't even need superheroes. It's a Gotham story that feels more like The Godfather than Batman. Colin Farrell disappears into Oscog, the broken man who becomes a monster because the city demands it. You watch him claw his way up the crime ladder, and a part of you starts rooting for him. That's the dangerous magic of great writing. It makes you sympathize with the villain. The Secret of the Penguin. It redefines what superhero storytelling can be. It's not about powers, it's about ambition. It's about how Gotham itself creates its own demons, one broken dream at a time. And let's be honest, Colin Farrell didn't just act. He devoured that role. Every glare, every pause, every cigar puff. It's like watching the birth of a legend. If the Batman was about fear, the Penguin is about hunger. And that hunger, that desperate need to matter, is what makes it unforgettable. When WandaVision first aired, nobody knew what to expect. A black and white sitcom, a laugh track, the MCU doing the Twilight Zone, and then it hit us. This wasn't a comedy. It was a breakdown. Every smile Wanda gave was covering a scream. Every perfect TV moment was built on the ruins of grief. And the forbidden knowledge buried inside the show. Wanda didn't create a fantasy world to control others. She built it to survive herself. That's what made it art. Each episode's changing decade wasn't just a stylistic gimmick. It was a timeline of denial. 1950s optimism, order, 1970s chaos, and finally silence. Elizabeth Olsen's performance deserves its own monument. She made us feel every layer of denial, loss, and acceptance. And by the final, you realized you weren't watching the story of a villain. You were watching a eulogy for love itself. When Vision said, "What is grief, if not love persevering?" You didn't just cry. You remembered, and that's why WandaVision isn't just top-tier MCU. It's television history. And finally, the masterpiece that completed the transformation of superhero TV. When Loki started, we all expected trickery, mischief, maybe a few time loops. But what we got was philosophy wrapped in chaos. Tom Hiddleston turned a fan-favorite villain into a mythic character study. Every episode asked a question bigger than the multiverse. Can destiny be rewritten, or are we all just slaves to our own stories? That's not just clever writing. That's existential cinema disguised as Marvel. And the real secret, Loki's journey wasn't about power, or even freedom, it was about purpose. The god of mischief, the eternal sidekick, finally became something divine, the god of stories. He went from chaos to meaning, from selfishness to sacrifice, and in doing so, Loki became the MCU's most beautiful tragedy. When he sat on that throne of timelines, alone but fulfilled, we all felt it, the loneliness of growth, the price of purpose. And maybe that's the forbidden knowledge behind every great superhero show. They're not about saving the world. They're about saving yourself. Think about it, epic fam. 10 years ago, superhero TV was side content. Now, it's prestige storytelling, it's philosophy, it's heartbreak, therapy, satire, and spectacle rolled into one. From Agatha's haunting charm to Loki's lonely divinity, these shows didn't just adapt comic books, they translated human emotion into myth. And maybe that's why we keep coming back. Because deep down, every one of us wants to believe that even our pain, our loss, our weirdness, can become something powerful, something heroic. So tell me in the comments, which of these shows wrecked you the most? Which one do you think deserves to be called the greatest superhero masterpiece of the decade? And while you're down there, don't just scroll past. You're already part of the Breakdown Epic family. We don't chase trends here. We uncover them. We talk about the forbidden truths behind your favorite universes. So stick around, subscribe if you haven't, and let's keep peeling back the layers of the stories that move us. Because this is Sophia signing off, reminding you that heroes may wear masks, but it's the pain underneath that makes them unforgettable.